Dr. Lakshmi is a passionate teacher with dedication and decades of experience in industry, academics, and administration. She started her career at Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur, and continued her service with ITM and SGT University, Gurgaon. She also headed the law school at Ansal University and GD Goenka University, Gurgaon, before joining Adani Institute of Infrastructure Management as professor and head Pgdm Law. Ma'am is currently serving us as Pgdm chair. Ma'am honed her research and teaching skills by actively participating in training programs conducted by the experts of Cardiff Law School, University of New Hampshire, and National Law University Singapore, and Ministry of Human Resources Development. May I now request ma'am to take over.
Thank you, Ankita, for the nice introduction. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the faculty and staff of Adani Institute of Infrastructure, I deem it my pleasure and privilege to welcome each one of you to this orientation program. At the outset, we at Adani Institute wish to congratulate all of you for taking a wise decision of doing the PGDM course, that too at Adani Institute of Infrastructure. We all know that taking the correct decision is the first step to success. Each one of us take hundreds of decisions every day, each day. Some are easy, some are complex, and some will help you to grow by leaps and bounds. The decisions that we take each day will have a direct and dramatic impact on the cause, time, feelings, and relationships. Choosing a right course and a right institute is a major decision in one's life, which will decide your career and your future. I did my LLB from Madras Law College. Madras Law College has produced several Chief Justices of India, Supreme Court and High Court judges, legal luminaries including R. Venkatraman, the 8th President of India. The important reason why Madras Law College and its students stood out from the crowd is that the college was located inside the Madras High Court campus. Students always had the exposure to the profession and opportunity to interact and learn from the leaders in the profession and directly inspired by the best. The same advantage is available to the students of the Adani Institute of Infrastructure. Our students always have the privilege of closely interacting and learning from professionals from Adani Group. At Adani, you will get an opportunity to be taught by eminent industry leaders like Mr. Devang Desai, CFO of the Adani Group, who is currently the Dean of the Institute, Dr. A.V. Thomas, with rich global experience in handling public-private infrastructure projects, who is currently the Director of the Institute. For example, in the second year, our students choose a sector from the different options available, like transport, energy, real estate, airport, and other specializations. And we had Mr. Ben Zandi, CEO of Adani Airports, who taught them and explained to them about the importance of the airport sector and the future of it. The group projects done by our students was evaluated by Anshu Malik, COO of Adani Wilmar, and he gave his valuable suggestions. Mr. Mukesh Parikh, who is there with Adani Group in senior management position from the inception stage of Mundra Port, and made a major contribution in preparing standard operating procedures for the entire spectrum of operations in the port, teaches port management for our students. Almost every week, we have one guest lecture delivered by senior personals from Adani Group. There can be any number of B schools, but I don't think any other B school can give you this amount of practical exposure and experiential learning to students. If taking right decision is the step 1 for success, adopting to changes is step 2 for success. It is because of this reason that Adani Group, which was established in 1988, made a mark in every possible sector and emerged as leaders in sectors ranging from coal mining and trading, exploration of gas and oil to ports and power generation. Same is applicable to the Adani Institute of Infrastructure. We never hesitate to adopt the changes or equip ourselves to face the challenges posed by this pandemic caused by COVID-19. The best example is the Pgdm Law Program, which was started last year. The Adani Group, from their experience, understood that a sound legal knowledge is required for a person in a senior managerial position. A decision taken by such a person may avoid number of unnecessary litigations and save valuable time and cost if he understands the significance and consequences of complying with the law of the land made by regulatory institutions. I'm extremely proud to mention here that Pgdm law is offered in India only by Adani Institute of Infrastructure. As I said, we easily adopt the changes and equip ourselves for the changes, as change is the only constant thing in the world. Yes, we and our students have adopted ourselves to all the changes and challenges thrown by COVID-19 to us. There is no change in the regular classes or in the co-curricular or extracurricular activities. In fact, we have used it to our advantage. The number of experts from different parts of the country and abroad who have delivered online classes and webinars to our students regularly over the past few months is a proof of it. My dear students, prepare yourself for the exciting journey over the next 2 years. And we welcome you to the Adani family with our whole heart, as you are the ones we are looking for, who are capable of taking the right decision and ready for any change or challenge. I promise you that each and every faculty and every member of Adani Institute of Infrastructure will deliver the best to you. On behalf of the faculty and staff at Adani Institute of Infrastructure, I welcome you all once again and wish you a great success in your career and life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we have a short video. Mr. Dipankar Savalka, Advisory Leader, PwC India, was really excited to be here with us today and interact with the new batch. But due to some unavoidable work exigencies, he could not be here with us. However, he, with regrets of not being able to join us today and a promise to meet all of us soon, he has sent a very beautiful video for our new batch of 2020 and 22.
Hello, everyone. I would have loved to be there today with you. Unfortunately, I am not being able to do so. A meeting has come up, which I tried to change, but could not, and I needed to be present on that virtual meeting. These are exciting times for you as Pgdm students of Infrastructure Management and Law Program. It's such an interesting combination and which you are embarking on. Today, infrastructure spends in the country are so big, so massive. I think so we have a real dearth of qualified graduates like yourselves, or professionals like yourselves. And I'm really looking forward to the first batch, the inaugural batch coming through. There are no guidebooks, no standard operating procedures for all the learning which we have to do today in these COVID times. We all are learning. So I think so it's a hell of a good opportunity for all of you to really explore in this COVID times as to what can be possible. As they say, it is not the strongest that survives, not the most intelligent, but the one who is most able to change. I'm sure you all are there and will be there. So my view or my recommendation is be agile, be always open to learning. I can tell you, I have reinvented myself in my career already 3 times round. And I bet before my career is over, I would have reinvented myself at least once more. It's important that we remain relevant in this volatile, uncertain world. The traditional ladders of career growth do not remain or exist. When I was graduating, there was this pretty much a thing about there are very set patterns on your career. Fortunately, today, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want, excel in it, and be successful. That's the beauty. I envy you and the times which you are in, hence make the most of it. Remember, we can't control the wind, but we can only adjust the sails. It's your time now to learn just how to do that. I have my colleague Manish Agarwal, who is an infrastructure guru, there who have a conversation with you and to have those interactions. I will try my very best to be with you during your session at some point in time in the future. All the very best to each and every one of you. Take care.
I think that was a really motivating message from Dipankar sir. Now to move forward, we are fortunate to have accompanied by Mr. Manish Agrawal. Mr. Manish Agarwal for the inaugural talk and interaction, followed by a discussion by 2 of our faculty from AIIM. Before I request Mr. Manish Agarwal to take forward the program, I would like to take the privilege of introducing him to our batch of 2020-22. Mr. Manish Agarwal represents India on PwC's Global Capital Projects and Infrastructure Network. He is an engineer from BITS Pilani with Pgdm from AIIM Kolkata with 25 years of long experience in advising developers, financiers, governments, and regulators enabling private sector investment in infrastructure. His experience encompasses planning of economic corridors, designing policies for sector restructuring, preparing PPP programs and projects, managing transactions to deliver value for money, and advising investors on infrastructure investments. He has also led several sector shaping engagements across energy, transport, and urban sectors. Sir is a very reputed thought leader in infrastructure, and he actively shares his insights through articles and discussion papers. We are really glad to have you, sir, with us.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Thank you very much. Very excited to see so many bright, young, eager faces. Deeply honored to be part of this inauguration event to welcome the new batch of Pgdm students to the infrastructure management and the law program. So when Dipankar referred to me as guru, I do hope he wasn't referring to my looks. This is not my normal look, and I hope this does not become my new normal look either. Though Mumbai has started relaxing the lockdown, I am still afraid to visit the barber. And I'm sure all of you are experiencing fear, anxiety, and for reasons that are a lot more hair-raising than mine. I'm sure you're all thinking about what will happen to the economy, what will happen to our jobs, where is our career headed. All of these are very valid concerns. And as your self-appointed guru for the next half an hour or so, I will share my thoughts and my experiences. Hopefully some of that will be relevant to your context. But before that,
Manish, give me a moment. You are not visible. You are audible, but you are not visible. Can you put on your video, maybe?
it says camera is on. At my end, it shows it as camera is on.
All right. Okay.
Let me try and switch it off and switch it on again.
Maybe.
Does that make any change?
I still can't see you. But please carry on. Let's see if in between. If you're not visible, I might interrupt, but you are not visible right now.
So maybe I'll keep going and.
All right. Yes.
Back
Please
end
carry on.
yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
So I was saying that there is one other thing that I think you should be worried about. I would go so far as to say more than about economy and sector and career, etc. And that is an area in which you will have to help yourself. Nobody can help you. Reflecting back to my first day at business school, we did not have any commencement function. We landed up at our hostels and just very tenderly introduced ourselves to others in the corridors. You've all completed your undergraduation, so I assume you would be familiar with terms like roomie and wingy and sidey, or there may be new terms for co-living with others in hostel. Many of these people went on to become friends for life. And what I think you should be worried about is how will you make friends for life if you're operating offline. The next 2 years is the last opportunity that you have of making friends for life. You will still do some more over your working life, but seriously, this is really a golden opportunity to make friends who who stay with you for a very long time.
Manish, I'm so sorry to interrupt. This is looking odd. Maybe you should log off and log in again, because a commencement speech with you not visible, a guru not visible, is looking odd a little bit.
Okay,
Can you just log
do
out
that.
and log in again? Yes, please. Yes. We have to have a handle on technology, but sometimes it fails right at the wrong time.
Am I audible and visible now?
You are audible, but not visible. But yes, you are visible now. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Okay.
Yes, you are visible and audible as well. Very good morning, and please continue. I'm so sorry about this technical faux pas, as they say.
No problem. I would be surprised if there wasn't a technical challenge in a meeting of this size. So all well if that happened.
All right, carry on, please.
So yeah, so I'll just carry on from where I left, which is to say that do focus on figuring out how you will make friends. Maybe my fear is unfounded. You are all digital natives, and maybe all of you have already figured it out, in which case that's great. coming back to the anxiety about the uncertainties ahead, uh, I would think that you are entering your business school at a very appropriate time. In fact, you have certainty of what you will do for the next 2 years. And 2 years is about the maximum time that is being predicted for the economy to fully recover from the pandemic. So in a sense, this is actually a great time to invest 2 years in educating oneself, because out there in the working world, there is a lot more uncertainty. What I'll do is maybe I'll share some more of my personal experiences and see if there are some lessons from there. Dipankar mentioned reinventing yourself, and that he has done it at least 3 times. I have spent 25 years only in infrastructure, and yet I have had to reinvent myself every few years. I followed, as you heard, the familiar route of engineering, followed by MBA, and I landed my campus job in CRISIL. Now, the interesting bit is that at that time, not only did I not know anything about CRISIL, credit rating itself was introduced in India barely a couple of years then. This is back in 1995. We were in fact the first batch recruited by CRISIL for their newly set up infrastructure advisory business. So it was completely by chance that I got into an area that did not exist when I was actually in college or even in my business school. And I got into writing the first power purchase agreements, the first port concession agreements in the country, and so on. Over time, I learned several new things in infrastructure sector as it continued to evolve. Power markets, economics of public transport, airport regulation, none of this was taught to us in any classroom. And in every situation, I threw my mind back to what I learned in my business school and which concept I need to draw upon. Even today, when I do recruitment interviews, one of my favorite questions is, how would you apply demand, supply, price concept in determining toll on roads? Because what I really want to see is your ability to apply concepts, not what information you're carrying on your head. So here's my guru message number 2 to you. The first one was about making friends. The second one is focus on getting your concepts strong. The contextual familiarity will follow. You will solve new problems. You will find new problems. But in the next 2 years, how strongly you build your conceptual base is really going to hold you in great stead over your entire career. Again, just to share with you, I am now in my organization formally required to underscore digital upskilling. We did not even hear about digital or upskilling in my business school days. And yet, even as I personally undergo digital upskilling, I find that these two principles of getting my conceptual, going back to my conceptual base and then applying it in the context that I'm in, it gives me the confidence to match up to the digital natives. Just so you know, digital natives are those who learn ABC as A for Apple, iPad, and so on. Let me also share a technique for getting conceptual clarity, and I learned this very recently. I'm part of a small group where we catch up occasionally, a bunch of friends, to make sense of what is happening in the world. Every person is a guru in their own field, and someone takes the lead on a topic of the day, and so on. And every once in a while, someone will raise their hand and say, sorry, but I have a KG level question. You understand KG, kindergarten. And more often than not, that one KG level question ends up fundamentally reshaping the discussion. So if you think a question is too basic, don't worry, raise your hand and ask it. That is why you're here. You are here to get answers to basic questions. So maybe this will become an AIIM thing, that KG level question is the thing to ask. Just to continue with my career story and kind of fast forwarding to 6 months ago, last December, I took a 6-month sabbatical from work. And friends and colleagues asked me what I planned to do. And I said, and this is exactly what I said, my words, kuch nahi yaar, bas ghar pe baithunga. And lo behold, 3 months later, that is exactly what I was doing. That is exactly what all of you were doing. But in the first 3 months, I signed up for everything I could. Tennis classes, guitar classes, improv, trekking, Hindi literature. And in this process, I ended up writing poetry and performing them on stage. The interesting thing is that writing poetry was not on my list of things to do during the sabbatical. I had a long list. This was not there. It just happened to me, just like my first infrastructure advisory job happened to me. So my message number 3 is, Don't worry if you do not know where you see yourself 3 years from now. Nobody knew this in the BC era, and it is an even wilder guess in the post-COVID world. You must have a plan, but have flexibility. Let there be flexibility to let life happen to you. In turbulent waters, just floating in the right direction can often get you farther than swimming. So enough about me. Let me spend the next few minutes giving you an outlook about the economy and about infrastructure, just to give you some more concrete evidence for why I believe that you are in the right place to let life happen to you. First, on the economy, in the short term, some green shoots are visible, but it is fairly clear that the economic recovery process will be slow. It will be painful. Power consumption is up, toll collections on roads is up, FMCG demand is up, white good demand is looking up. But overall, a 4 to 6% contraction of the GDP this year is most likely. And obviously that will get, that will get reflected in a sharper increase next year. But it is going to likely take some time for us to come back to 2018 levels. And this does have serious impact on employment and on poverty in our country. But having said that, if we take a little bit of a medium-term view, and you are here at the beginning of a 25 to 30-year career, so you should be taking a medium to long-term view, the economic outlook, particularly on India, remains bullish because the fundamentals of India are strong. India's demographic dividend and its potential from unserved demand, all of you heard this several times, I don't need to repeat that, but I will share some data points. And some of these data points I used in a presentation that I did at Davos in 2018. So what I'm highlighting to you is that what was true in 2018 is even more relevant and has even more potential in the post-COVID world. These 2-3 points I'd put under the main heading of India is adding 18 million consumers and workers every year. That's a very powerful statement. 18 million consumers and workers getting added every year. What that means is India's healthcare market was expected to grow from $110 billion 3 times to over $370 billion by 2022. This was an ASSOCHAM estimate. You can imagine the impact on healthcare market in a post-COVID world. The demand for affordable housing in urban areas of India was estimated at 12 million by the Ministry of Housing. And again, I will come back to this point in about 30 seconds. With over 450 million, India has the second largest number of internet users in the world. And this was estimated to grow at 30% per annum. You've seen all the recent news around Jio and investors in that, and everybody moving more online, etc. Just imagine what happens to that part of the economy. So, as they say, never waste a crisis. The COVID pandemic has brought focus on several fundamental hurdles in India's economy. And it is indeed very encouraging to see these becoming more center stage in our policy making. I'll give you 2 examples. I referred to some of them earlier. The urban poor, they are all around us, but they fell on our policy blind spot for a long time. I remember a 2012 report of the ministry which said that while the number of poor people in India reduced sharply in the first decade of the century, the number of urban poor actually increased. And I think this is very much center stage today as we talk about the migrant crisis. Second, agriculture sector reforms. They are absolutely necessary for solving many of India's problems. They have a direct impact on per capita income. They have a direct impact on land availability for industrial growth, for addressing water shortage, for making power discoms viable, and many, many other things. This pandemic has forced policy attention to go back to basics. So I'm very excited about the possibilities of progress on our agricultural and rural sector reforms also. Finally, I genuinely believe that India has a real opportunity to emerge as an alternate location in global and regional supply chains. South Asia's working population will grow to over 70% over the next 20 years, while everywhere else, the world average, China, Japan, this proportion will decline. So while everywhere else the working population proportion is declining, India and the geography around us, it is increasing. There is a massive potential to harness this workforce. Infrastructure will remain a key lever here. So with that, let me move on to my favorite topic, and hopefully yours too, which is infrastructure. The infrastructure sector has made tremendous progress over the last 2 decades. And seriously, if I look back to what kind of infrastructure we had 20 years, 25 years back and what we have today, the change is absolutely visible. And a lot of it is driven by private sector. Over 60% of all power generation capacity addition is happening in the private sector. This was in the 12th plan. Nearly 50% of all cargo, maybe more now, passes through private sector ports and terminals. Nearly 60% of all air traffic is handled by private airports, and this will continue to increase. And yet, the country needs to continue to add more infrastructure. We are nowhere near fulfilling our infrastructure needs. The economic survey estimated that India will need $4.5 trillion US in the next 25 years, not just for meeting our basic infrastructure needs, but even to align with our climate change objectives, we will need to spend a lot more to meet those goals. So rest assured that the demand for infrastructure professionals will remain. It will remain well through your career timeframes. It has remained through my career timeframe and beyond. But that is not to say that things are not changing. Rapid changes are taking place in our sectors. Globally, the infrastructure sector sits at the collision point of global disruptions, including shifts in capital availability, evolving social and environmental priorities, and rapid urbanization. However, the emergence of COVID-19 introduces a new set of challenges. While the full impact of this pandemic will play out over time, in the near term, we believe that there are 4 ways in which our industry will be reshaped. There will clearly be a higher intensity of focus on operational resilience. How do you continue to operate as the pandemic kind of flares up in certain parts, comes down, there is, rolling lockdown? How do you operate while maintaining distance, while keeping it safe? All of this will get a lot of focus in infrastructure operations, as indeed everywhere else. Affordability of infrastructure, I think this is a point that will become even more center stage today. In the past, most of the time, infrastructure plans have been drawn up, and particularly private investment plans have been drawn up only looking at the gap. We need so much infrastructure, we have this much, therefore we must add this much, and we can afford this much from the budget, so the balance must come from the private sector. This line of thinking did not work, and as governments become more overtaxed, or our populations become more overtaxed, governments become more debt burdened, affordability of infrastructure and prioritization of infrastructure on the affordability lens is going to become that much more central. Third, deployment of new technologies. Again, this was already happening. We were using a lot more drones, a lot more augmented reality. We've been talking about, self-operating vehicles. New technologies for making it safe to operate infrastructure, to build infrastructure, is going to become even more important in a post-COVID world. I genuinely believe that the concept of social distancing in public transport does not work for Asian countries. For Asian cities where the density is what it is, social distancing is not going to be the solution. One will have to think of more use of certainly masks and other equipment, but also technology to figure out how we can still make public transport usable and safe in a post-COVID world. And fourth, the need for sustainability. And I think this has been a challenge. It will remain a challenge to balance our development needs and our concern for the environment. There's been a lot of excitement about how the lockdowns have really improved the environment. There's pictures of clean air, of clean rivers, and so on. But sustainability to become part of our life, to become part of infrastructure planning and delivery, is going to continue to be an issue that all of us will work on. We are already seeing more focus on renewable energy as opposed to our traditional sources of fossil fuels and so on. It will permeate every aspect of energy, of transport, of urban infrastructure, and so on. So successful infrastructure delivery will demand close alignment and collaboration of a wide range of participants, each with their own agenda, each with their own interest. And the result is that no single player acting alone can affect real change in this sector. And as infrastructure professionals, a lot of our work will be to bring alignment along different dimensions or different stakeholders. So in short, infrastructure has been, will remain a very exciting place to be. In India particularly, I believe we have significant distance to cover on governance and regulatory aspects. That remains one of the key concerns for investors. And indeed, it is AIIM's foresight to have a course which is focused exactly on this aspect. Just to conclude, what does all of this mean for you? In today's context, building a broad base of knowledge is important. So while you will specialize, broad knowledge will allow you to figure out which hills merit capture. Deepankar mentioned the traditional career ladder will not exist in the same form as it once did. To elaborate on that, going forward, rather than asking you to choose a profession or career, we should really be encouraging you to figure out what kind of problems you most enjoy tackling and build the skills to solve them. Because problem solving is a transferable skill that will not change with technology. Everything else will get impacted with technology. STEM will be your friend, science, technology, engineering, maths will be your friend, but everyone will need a solid understanding of how certain technologies and technical skills fit into their chosen platform. And equally, the ability to work with people is going to be very critical in being effective. In the future, careers will consist of moves from platform to platform, and people will apply certain subject matter expertise and problem solving capabilities as needed. And leaders have begun to understand this. Leaders are looking at bundles of skills and aptitudes that their employees possess and are investing in upskilling and developing those correct attitudes. Local first is likely to be an approach. There would come the possibility of looking for employment in local business communities as large corporations rework their staffing models and hire fewer people, not just to cut costs, but also to automate and to ensure more physical distancing. At least in the short term, I think this really provides a massive opportunity for people to not necessarily be in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Ahmedabad, but to really work from locations that are, have better urban amenities. Online education will certainly exist, and blended learning is likely to be the way forward. So let me stop with that. Once again, congratulations on joining a very supportive institute, indeed a very supportive family, and a very relevant program. On behalf of PwC and on behalf of the infrastructure professionals community, my best wishes to you on an exciting journey ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are honored to have had a chance to hear you. Now, to move forward, we have two of our very experienced faculty from AIIM. Dr. Kamal Kishore Sharma, sir, is a fellow of AIIM Ahmedabad. His rich career spans across 31 years with stints at an Indian public sector, Indian civil service, multinational corporation, and educational institutes. At the helm, he has been a CEO at an MNC and a vice chancellor. At the dawn of this decade, he was in the founding team of this Adani Institute of Infrastructure Management, where he also heads the International Center for Surface and Air Transport. Dr. Astha Agarwal is also a fellow of AIIM Ahmedabad. She teaches courses in the areas of economics and public policy. She has worked briefly in infrastructure consulting. Her research interests are in the areas of urban infrastructure, real estate, and macroeconomic policies. Now, I would like to invite them for taking the discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Ankita. A very good morning to all of you. Good morning, Manish ji. I'm sorry for the interruption. I'm still feeling a little bad about it. Technology, but you don't have control sometimes. Good morning, Astha. How we are planning to go ahead from here is I would request all others except me, Manish and Astha all others to switch off their videos so that, we look very clear, and very aggressive while fighting each other. Yes, please, all of you, please switch off your videos. Hopefully, we should be only 3 of us should be visible, and then we will get you back when we end to the near of this. When we wind up, we'll get all of you back. Don't worry, you'll not get lost. Okay, Jinil, would you like to switch off your video? Jinil? Dakshesh Patel, अपना वीडियो ऑफ कर सकते हैं दक्षेश?
वीडियो ऑफ ही है मेरा.
All right, okay. So how are we visible? 3 of us only. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you very much, Manish. It was a fantastic little and a very powerful, references to almost everything that is happening around us. I specifically loved your statement, and I saw a lot of students smiling also. In turbulent waters, floating in the right direction will take you farther than swimming. I really love that. So let me, what we'll do is I have a few questions in mind. Astha may have some, and then we will expect some student contributions in the chat window. We will pick up from there and have some discussion. Our time line is about 18 plus 13, so we have good 31 minutes to us. All right. So question to you, Manish. You said 60% infrastructure investment is happening in private sector. You said, there's increased involvement of private sector in ports and airport business, where again, 60% of the business kind of, happening over there. So I'm getting a little philosophical. I've seen China being able to control the COVID because of its brute force on the governance side. And just a couple of days back, I also read about and I heard from my colleague in US who said that, when it is lockdown here, it is very strong lockdown, as in the administration is able to push forward. So I got a little confused. What works better in a crisis? When private sector has showed its willingness, what works better? A communist authoritarian kind of driven economy, or a liberal democracy driven economy?
So, Dr. Kamal, unfortunately, we are not able to choose our governance form according to the situation. We cannot switch on to an authoritarian style in a crisis and switch back to a democracy, once the crisis is passed. I think certainly in a crisis, one needs more army-like environment. In an army, there is very clear who's the general, who's the soldier. Once the general says something has to be done, the soldier does it. And there's no doubt that in a crisis, that kind of a structure, kind of works well. And armies are dealing with crisis all the time, particularly crisis where there is uncertainty, where you don't know how many people are on top of the hill that you're supposed to climb. But if you ask me to make this choice, I still think that the benefits of a democracy, to my mind, far outweigh the disbenefits. And having said that, I think even in our crisis, within our democratic system, we did go into the lockdown very early on. I think we perhaps missed some things that look very obvious with the benefit of hindsight. When you say lockdown and stay at home, if a lot of people do not have homes, particularly in urban environments, it is very difficult to enforce that. So not to I mean, this is not really about laying blame at the right place. There is a right time and a right place for that. But to your specific question, I do think that it is possible for us to deal with crisis within the democratic setup, and within that, uh, and really, I think governance is at the heart of it. So I think most of our fault lines, with the benefit of hindsight, will go back to governance issues. So, and I wrote an article on this very early on in the lockdown. And one of the things I said that what will be critical is how quickly is decision making and authority moved down to state and to districts and to cities. And I think that is something that, had it got done sooner, may perhaps, or where it got done sooner, there are several examples where the local administration, took control, because it is such a localized thing. So that's my longish answer to your question.
True, very true. I would request all students to put their minds through and ask questions in the chat window. I'm sorry, Astha. Yes, your stage.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to that there couldn't have been a more fitting fighting start for the 2 years journey these students are going to embark upon. I'm very happy for them. Thank you, Manish, and thank you, Kamal sir, for that question. Adding to that question, since Manish, you mentioned that urban poor were not on the policy making front line, and you also just now said that from the governance point of view also the decision making the authority should trickle down from the central to the state to the city level administration. So what do you think is going to be the future of urban infrastructure, in the sense that one aspect is productivity enhancement, and the other aspect is making cities more attractive and welcoming to the migrants, because they've gone back. And we all agree that they are not going to stay where they have gone, because there are no opportunities there. There might be some short-term MNR, EGA and other program generated sort of opportunities, but ultimately they'll have to come back, because it's not only their need, the cities also need them. So after NNUM, and we do have Amrit and smart cities, but do you foresee any other mission sort of approach, or what approach do you think would work better to make our cities more inclusive and welcoming for the migrants?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think two things will happen. And again, it's not that none of these were on the table or on the policy agenda. I think it's just the degree of emphasis and the degree of urgency that keeps changing from time to time. For a very long time, we continued to say that India lives in its villages. It's only around 2005, 2010 that we said, look, urbanization is a reality, and if we don't give it attention, we will have kind of crazy cities. So like I said, two things. I think one, there will be more emphasis on tier 2, tier 3 cities. We cannot have our growth coming entirely from our big 6 cities. So and you will remember, urbanization was a term that got designed in Gujarat. It moved to central government. It changed its name to PURA, providing urban amenities in rural areas. It will probably take another new name, but the fundamental point remains that we cannot continue to ignore our tier 2, tier 3 cities. And I do think that a lot of it cannot all be driven from the center. It is just physically, governance wise, not possible. I think the cities will need to demand more attention, will need to take charge of their futures and so on. The other is, like you mentioned, that we've had programs like Amrut and JNNURM, etc. I think they will probably get more attention, and particularly on, exactly like you said, cities will need to think about how to attract migrants. We've treated migrants, perhaps not consciously, perhaps not in words, but as a necessary evil. I think it's fairly clear that this population is a driving force of our cities. Where they fell on the blind spot is because, and that's part of the earlier discussion on democracy. They don't vote back in their villages. They don't vote, in the cities. Where is the political constituency that they represent? And I think that has rightly come center stage. The one nation, one ration card is going to create an identity which does not get lost because you leave Balia and come to Mumbai or something like that. And we know that there is initiatives going on in the central government, in several state governments, to use technology, to use databases, to make it easy for people to connect with jobs and job providers to connect with people. Infrastructure industry, particularly construction industry, is at the forefront of this. You would have seen in the news that L&T has been doing this even before the pandemic. They had a database of subcontractors and workers and so on. And then through the same kind of platform, can we connect for providing housing? Can we connect for providing food? Because again, while for us WFH is work from home, work, food, housing is very often a bundled contract for migrant labor. The person who employs them gives them housing, gives them food very often. So I think platforms that are solving for all these three, we see work happening on those, and I think we will see more stuff on that.
Manish, a connected question, and I get some inputs from the chat as well. So you talked about local first staffing models would change. That brings my attention back to the migrants that you were just discussing. Now, I have reports that the Punjab and Haryana big landlords, when they are wanting the Bengal, Orissa and Bihar laborers to come back, they are asking 1.5 to 2 times salaries. Given that NREGA and all other schemes are already creating employment opportunities, what could be a new normal in terms of whether the back migration would be happening, or there will be a new cost new cost curve will be created because some sectors would have a very large cost portion on migrant working. So
Yeah.
where do you see the new thing developing?
Yeah, no, yeah, and I think nothing is going to be black and white. Nothing is going to be one extreme or the other. We will see a mix of everything that you said. So the good news to my mind is that today as a country we are able to feed everyone. There may be logistical challenges, but people are not dying of hunger because they are back in the village or back in a tier 3 town. And I think that's really good news compared to maybe 20, 30 years back. So then it comes to really choice of life and lifestyle. So people who've gone back are not going to come running to the cities again because they are starved, but because there is a choice of life and lifestyle to be made. Do I want for themselves and for their next generation? A lot of migrants work in very poor conditions because essentially they are investing their personal life to create a better life for their next generation. And those are the choices that people have been making. So certainly there will be some people who will say, look, I am done with living with 6 people in a dormitory with a drain flowing past it, not knowing who will take care of me if I fall ill in the city. I'm going to stay back in the village. What that does is, of course, it creates a bigger pressure on an employment problem. Already, agriculture sector is a source of a lot of hidden unemployment. We all know that. Our agriculture productivity is low, partly because it hides unemployment. So there is a big challenge of how can we create employment in newer locations. Equally, there will be people who will indeed come back, to cities, but in the short term, I think it's fairly clear that labor costs will go up. I think people are already seeing that, and the whole demand supply impact on labor prices will take time to play out. But in the short term, people are preparing, and I think this is a challenge for businesses. Labor prices will go up, capacity utilization is going to be low, but you cannot increase prices for your output. I think our businesses are going to struggle with this cost increase, inability to raise price for some time until different businesses reach different levels of equilibrium. And as economists, that makes it very difficult to take a call on inflation. I mean, food will likely not become expensive, and that drives a lot of our inflation, but labor will, and everything else is extremely uncertain. How demand will come back slowly, and therefore you can't expect prices to rise sharply, but costs are rising. I don't know the answer, but I think I'm just laying out the challenge that we will see over the next at least 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you rightly said, Manish, that labor costs are going to go up, and inflation is now anybody's guess as to there's so much uncertainty around what prices will flow in what way. And there is this discussion around recovery. Some people say that economic recovery is going to take a V shape versus an L shape, versus some people also say it might even be a W. So the the recovery would depend upon resilience of the businesses to on one side to cover to sort of control the costs, and the other, that in your speech you said operational efficiency and affordability. There also you hinted about the price issue. So I just want to have your view on which sectors do you think would recover faster than others in the economy. Specifically, if one looks at infrastructure, which of these are likely to be faster on the recovery path?
Yeah, so I think most of infrastructure, not all. So clearly, I think in power, we are seeing demand come back. Not to the full level, because again, a lot of it will depend on industry, and industries were already seeing a decline in capacity utilization throughout most of 2019. So to that extent, you have to, are you comparing power demand today with 2019 or 2018, given that 2019 was already in a bit of a decline. But by and large, I think, power should come back sooner. Road and particularly toll paying traffic on road is coming back rapidly. So, domestic logistics has picked up. Import, export, and therefore on our ports, I would think that with a little bit of lag, but I do think that will come back. And more so if we are able to successfully start participating or kind of swing some of the regional value chains and global value chains. Deviating a bit, I'm honestly not too worried about a lot of onshoring in US and Europe. Fundamentally, there is a reason why there was offshoring. That reason has not changed. Just like we said, fundamentally, there's a reason why migrants came to cities. Those reasons have not changed. So, so the whole chain will see some shifts, but not, dramatic onshoring in that sense. So aviation is clearly the big one, which will likely have a much longer period of recovery. This impacts our airports, this impacts our airlines. And I think, again, for infrastructure professionals, how does regulation respond to a change of this kind is going to really play out over the next couple of years. In theory, airports should not be worried because the regulation is supposed to ensure that you make your full revenues. But clearly that is going to be a big challenge when airlines themselves are struggling to even bear their costs. Outside of infrastructure, clearly, I think FMCG has come back very rapidly. And there, I think the constraints were more supply side than demand side. The supply side problems as they're getting resolved. White goods are seeing a big uptick. People want more, more equipment in their house. Dishwashers, for example, demands will go up. But I think auto is a big driver of employment in our country. And was not growing fast even prior to the pandemic. There are expectations that people will now buy more cars and vehicles because they don't want to use public transport. I don't think that will make a big difference because, again, fundamentally there was a reason why people were not buying cars, and it was an affordability issue. That's not going to go away in a hurry. Second-hand cars, second-hand vehicles, certainly, I think that is seeing an uptick. Pharma, I think it's a great time with more attention on healthcare. Food processing, I would think that we should really put a lot of effort in getting that right at this time, and it links the whole urban economy to the rural and agricultural economy. So food processing, agriculture logistics, I would expect that it will get attention, and if it does, it will really solve a fundamental hurdle in our economy.
Manish, there is a deluge, flood of questions in the chat box. So I need to put things together. So I just, put two questions together, and I'll just read them out. Akash Chandra Tare is asking, how are construction activities going to work? I mean, he's worried about, the mass exodus of migrant laborers. How does worker behavior will affect the scenario? Obviously, he's speaking about when they will come back and the cost part of it. Another related question, Ketan, and he looks a little deeper into future. He says, will there be a shift of labor available from infrastructure field to other fields?
Yeah, no, all very, very interesting and very relevant questions. On the construction side, I think we are seeing the reverse flow of workers already. I think about 2-3 weeks back, L&T put out that of their 3 lakh workers who they kind of keep track of, 1 lakh were already on site, and they expected 1 lakh to come back very soon. And it's really the last 1/3 that was somewhat uncertain. And 1/3 is a large number, so let's not underplay that. There is a slowdown in construction activity. We are talking to several construction companies to design SOPs, design procedures that give confidence to people to come to the work site. Everything around sanitation, around testing, particularly worker living, because in construction, workers live on site. So, while you can easily make the work site, sanitized and safe, the real concern is really the worker living. And again, we are finding that construction companies are very actively and proactively saying, I have to look at the workers, day in the life of a worker, for full 24 hours, and give him confidence around the 24 hours. So a lot of that is going on. But I think equally we are in for rolling lockdowns. You have a few cases, and suddenly the site will, kind of shut down. And I think for business leaders, this is a time when cost control and indeed most of business will have to be dealt with a lot of compassion. There are tangible costs and there are intangible costs. And while I'm saying this in context of construction sites, that applies in everything else also, that transparent communication, being able to show one's vulnerability in the face of uncertainty, is what business leaders are practicing and will need to practice to genuinely make workers feel like partners. At this time, you cannot force anyone to work. Everybody is working because they are part of the mission. Because we want to complete the Trans Harbour link on time is why I am here on site, not because my boss said, "Kaam nahi karega to paisa nahi milega." So I think that's a big challenge, certainly for the construction industry. Will people shift away from infrastructure to others? Look, I honestly don't have a very clear answer to that. I mean, I think demand, supply, price works in labor market, and including professionals like ourselves. Infrastructure is where the demand is. Many countries have clearly included infrastructure as part of their stimulus package. You look at UK, look at Germany, many of them are very clearly saying stepping up increase of infrastructure is part of our stimulus package. India has not said so in these words, but the NIP got announced 3 weeks into the lockdown, the National Infrastructure Pipeline. Coal mine commercialization got announced. Power distribution privatization in Union territories got announced. So I would think that the demand for professionals in infrastructure, will remain more attractive or as attractive as many other sectors, and the supply will really follow. I mean, I have seen people, I have spent 25 years in infrastructure. I've seen people who have been in infrastructure, gone into technology and so on. Equally, I've seen people who have come into infrastructure into 10th year or 15th year of their career. So, I'm not necessarily seeing any particular shifts in that kind of thing over the next 5 years, 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So yes, Manish, as you rightly said, there are challenges of demand, supply, and price. There are some questions in the chat box specifically asking about the. So, for example, Vineet here is asking what are the learnings for companies on financials from the pandemic. Basically, the question is about handling the working capital requirements and the cash requirements. And there is another question from Priyam Jain asking, cash flow has been a worry for every sector, and when the economy revives, what are the companies to do with the cash flow requirements? So would you like to throw some light on, how does a company handle this is unprecedented, a black swan sort of event, and so how do they take care of the financial requirements?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think cash is indeed king. Everybody is conserving cash. I think in the first month of the lockdown, a lot of reaction was knee jerk. What is the minimum that we need to do? How do we just survive? How do we, give comfort to our employees and so on? But as things have, we are now kind of third month, fourth month into it. We are working with several, of our clients in looking at costs very closely, and essentially we are trying to segregate each cost into good cost and bad cost. What does that mean? Good costs are those that I have to incur for continuity of business. I have to maintain inventory, especially if I'm going to have rolling lockdowns. My inventory, my supply chain may be serving one area which gets shut down. How quickly am I able to shift and supply another geography? Bad costs that were seen as necessary in a pre-COVID world, but today all of them are under the magnifying glass. A lot of our selling, administration, general expenses, real estate, particularly for professional services firms, corporate headquarters. A lot of us are revisiting the size of offices that we need. How can we encourage more local co-working? So don't need to come to office, don't need to stay at home, but can there be local co-working spaces with good connectivity? So real estate price, costs are certainly under the scanner. I think the most interesting aspect, particularly in manufacturing, is how do I deal with my suppliers? And again, like I said, that you need a lot of compassion to deal with people. It is not hard-nosed numbers kind of a dialogue. Similarly, dealing with the ecosystem of our suppliers is becoming more around win-win conversations. So certainly people are trying to variabilize their costs. So in fact, one conversation we had is how can I move fixed costs and make them variable? Essentially, you get someone who's who's a supplier to carry those costs instead of you carrying them as fixed costs. But equally, it's about the supply chain becoming more, let's say it was always interdependent, but more understanding of each other's pains. And I think that process of where will the risk sharing and cost sharing between a major industry and its suppliers sit in a post-pandemic world is getting reorganized as people are trying to convert fixed costs into variable costs. So again, certainly all of it is work in progress. But yeah, and the point I made earlier again for professional services firms, how can I set up my technology in a way that I can tap talent which is located in tier 2, tier 3 cities without necessarily having them to incur costs of being in a more expensive city. So we are really seeing all of this play out, and I'm confident that a lot of business will look very different 2 years from now.
There are a few questions which seem to be, giving credence to your statement also that real estate is one of the largest employers, and they are worried about the rentals industry. Dev Agrawal says, I would like to know more about the rental sector of the economy, because there is a vague clarity around, and some people say concession would be provided and some say there won't be any. I will complete his part of the question. I'll marry it with my question. Another one from Pakshal Adani says that how the investor are attracted to new projects of cities like Gift City, Shantigram Township, Dholera, and other, publicly announced large projects. And now something that comes close to what I wanted to ask: how far should the government intervene in all this?
Yeah. So first, rental, very complex area. In our country, traditionally, the landlord has been the villain, the tenant has been the victim. I mean, if you look at any Bollywood movie of 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on, I do hope that that mindset has changed, in the sense that, of course, like in any other relationship, there is a balance to be struck. The landlord uses the rent for paying, the landlord's bills if it's a business, and so on. So I think the balance will eventually fall somewhere in the initial, and again, I mean, some personal experiences I have. A lot of retired people use rental income as their retirement income. So it's not all about big business, which may have the ability to absorb some months of rental not getting paid. Again, I think it will play out and fall somewhere in the middle. Initial reactions were stop paying rent, and if you are not getting revenue, obviously you will stop paying rent. Businesses which are heavily dependent on rental payments, or where rental is a big cost, and where revenue is going to be farther down the road. Think of PVR, Phoenix, malls, multiplexes, and so on. I think they are in particularly difficult situation, and people who earn rental income from them are in difficult situations. So this will be a challenge. How far should the government intervene? Again, I think there's a lot of polarization on this issue. We've seen stimulus packages of all types around the world. I mean, the US put money in the hands of small businesses. India, in the first place, preferred to put food in the hands of people at the lowest end, so that that does not become a hurdle. The second step then was to try and see that the small businesses are able to continue to work, and this is implemented through the credit system. And I think that's where some of the concern is, because a lot of our small businesses actually are not part of the credit system. They do not have access to bank credit. So, trying to support them through the banking system alone is going to leave, or is leaving, a lot of small businesses, out of the government support program. But on your question, Dr. Kamal, particularly on infrastructure, I do think that it would have helped if the government had come out with a broad guideline or a policy on how infrastructure concession agreements are to be dealt with. And just to maybe dive a little deeper into that, a lot of our contracts are availability contracts, availability payments, your HAMs and our long-term PPAs and so on. I think it should just be clear that, look, you continue to get paid as long as you meet your availability requirements. On our regulated businesses, I thought it would have been helpful if the regulators had proactively given some comfort as to, do they understand what is going on? Are they painting scenarios of what will come up? And how do they plan to deal with it? Or here are just options, even if they're not saying this is how I plan to deal with it. It would have not only given comfort to investors, it would have been a very powerful statement for future situations, that India is a country where in a crisis, we are able to say this is how we plan to deal with it. And similarly for our infrastructure businesses which carry demand risk, toll roads, ports, and many others. Again, if there was, kind of somewhat proactive clarity on how we will support, and we will essentially, I would have liked the message to be infrastructure investors, you are investing in low risk, steady return business, and this is how we will re-emphasize that in a uncertain situation of this kind. So I mean that's my wish list. I know that perhaps some of that is actually happening through one-on-one dialogues, and that the authorities are having directly with the concessionaires. But that's my wish list that I'm putting out to your specific question.
One last question, Astha. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Manish.
Okay, so yeah, Sharma ji, if you allow me one last question, and that is also asked on chat, and that is very close to my heart, and Manish also would like to answer, I'm sure. People in the chat, Barkha and Ketan, are asking, what do you think is going to be the future of PPPs, in the sense that, private parties are scared, there's lack of funds. So where are the funds going to come from? And do you think people will keep coming upfront to enter into PPPs going ahead?
Yeah, a very, very, very relevant question to all of us. Let me first bust one myth. For infrastructure, there isn't a shortage of funds. And because we look at it from a global perspective, infrastructure as an asset class has been giving attractive returns globally, and therefore more and more investors have given money to infrastructure funds to put it to work. There has been more money chasing fewer projects, and when we say projects, obviously investable projects. As an aside, that has meant that the definition of infrastructure globally has kind of expanded to cover infrastructure-like assets, or the terminology that you will hear very often is core plus. So people are even saying, look, white label ATMs are essentially infrastructure, as an example, and then many others. But the challenge in our country has always been from the project side, that investable projects, risk managed, or kind of properly risk ring-fenced projects. I think the good news is that the understanding and appreciation is indeed there. Understanding that we must transfer risks that are best borne by the other party, etc. I think a lot of that is there. Converting that into proper contracts, again, I think a lot of that is happening. Where we need more work, and I referred to this in my speech also, is in building a lot more confidence in enforcement of contracts and timely enforcement of contracts. I think there's no point in us spending nights in arguing over comma, full stop of a paragraph hidden somewhere in force majeure conditions if it takes a long time to somebody to actually read it and use it when it needs to get applied. So I think, and again, I'm none of this is not known. Mr. Jaitley's first budget speech in the previous 5-year period very clearly highlighted 2-3 things, and they were enforcement of contracts, readiness of projects, and a couple of others. So I think all of this is very much on the table. So I continue to feel enthusiastic. What I understand again is that Niti Aayog is clearly pushing for PPPs to be more mainstream, to say why not PPP. So department should say why not PPP, and only if there is a satisfactory answer do you go to the kind of traditional rate contract or EPC or government owned route. There is more work to be done, particularly on governance and and contract enforcement. But I think PPP is very much here to stay, because again, fundamentally it makes sense. It is the more efficient way for the government to spend money, and as more value for money becomes center stage to our discussion, I think we will get these other pieces also right.
Right. Great. We have a lot more questions, but we are short on time. We are already past our regular time, but I would still like to mention a few questions that are very relevant. So Vandit Jain was looking at, in this situation, what opportunities lie for an infrastructure institution like ours. We'll deal with these questions through the year. Vandit, Jinil is worried about, which kind of laws would be impacted because of pandemic. Ashok is talking about where Adani's business focuses and future prospects will lie. Yash Raj is worried about the COVID-19 and when would be a time when he would be able to visit malls and multiplex without any fear. And Kenil Popat was worried about the trucking business and the kind of lockdowns and truck drivers everywhere. I'm so glad about all these questions coming up. Work from home. Manthan is asking about what happens to field workers when work from home is going to become the new norm. Barkha is worried about economy falling down, funds problem for infrastructure. You have already addressed that. A large amount of money going behind too few investable projects, and so on. So some more questions on epidemic and the aftermath of it. Great. On this note, once again on the epidemic side and how will we come back, I'll repeat, in turbulent waters, floating in the right direction will take you farther than swimming. Thank you very much, Manish ji, for a great interaction, for a great speech. You may like to say some parting words.
Thank you, Dr. Kamal. Thank you, Astha. It's been a really very, very interesting engagement for me. Going by the questions that have come up on the chat box, you have a very smart batch of students. So I think you will have a very exciting 2-year journey with them. Dr. Astha, I've promised you several times. I'm looking forward to more interactions with this batch as we go forward. And if you're going to remember one more thing from my speech, please remember to ask KG level questions. They are the most important questions. They are the most educating questions. Okay. Thank you. It was really a pleasure and all the best to this batch.
Stay with us for 2 more minutes, please, Manish. So can we have all of you switched on your videos and come back to the party?
And I would just like to add one line to it. Please do remember, very important message that Manish has given to all of us today. Stick with the fundamentals. Answering his questions also, he said if fundamentals are not changing, situation is not going to change much. And the other thing that you should remember is conceptual clarity and contextual familiarity. Very, very important, conceptual clarity. So 2 years of helping you out with conceptual clarity, we look forward to it. Thank you, Manish.
Right, Manish. So we have to bid a very goodbye to Manish. He's taken his time out from his busy schedule, and you know how busy it can be. That 6 months of freedom also makes him busier than before when he was at work.
We would like to listen to some of the Hindi poetry if possible, and the stand-up comedy act sometime.
Yeah, so one more interaction is very much due. Thank you very much, Manish, on behalf of every student. As you rightly said, we are happy to note the level of interaction and the kind of depth and the questions that are coming up. And who better a person than you to have clarified a lot of them. But then questions are always unending because if there were no questions, there would have been no educational institution. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll look forward to you in the next class very soon. Thank you very much, Manish. Good luck for your balance. What do you call it? Leave from work or sabbatical? Yes.
Yeah, no, it's over. The sabbatical is over. I'm back to work.
All right. Okay.
Thank you
very much. We look forward to interacting more with you. Thank you very much, everybody. For the students, if there is any message, Hiren, you would like to say something here, Ankita? Do you have some message for them or schedule for the next class?
Sir, not yet. I
All
don't
right.
have a message right now. Yeah.
No,
All
but
right.
I
Okay.
guess there is a session at 3 o'clock, right?
3 o'clock.
We should
Yes.
tell them. See, there is a session for you planned wherein discussion about health and safety will be undertaken. Very senior medical professionals are going to come down and talk to you. And we all look forward to that session. Please make sure that all of you log in time. So far, this Microsoft Teams experience is going on smooth for all of us, but make sure that for all the sessions you log in 10 minutes in advance so that if there is any issue with the camera or mic, you have time to figure that out. So do log in at 45. The session starts sharp at 3. And in due time, you will receive the timetable for the rest of your bridge course sessions. You're going to have a very, very exciting time ahead, 2 weeks. We have so many things planned for you, expert sessions, activities, a lot of fun as well as learning coming ahead. Sharma sir, would you like to add?
Yes. So one quick tip for managing Microsoft Teams: when you right click on any photograph which is visible in front of you, you will get 3 action buttons: mute participant, pin, and fit to frame. I guess mute participant is something that may not be allowed to you to mute anybody, but the pin and fit to frame is something that you can use in order to enlarge the photo of the person who is speaking. So you can see me in full form when you want to pin me on the screen. Okay, that's one quick tip. Second is in these COVID times, the bigger pressure on your mind and your parents' mind would be on safety and health. And given that we are receiving uh, quickly, reviewed suggestions from uh, the AICTE and the UGC regarding what would be a right time for physical classes to commence, we are really not in a position to, as much as we would have wanted all of you to be at campus, we are not in a position to start because of some of those directions that are quickly coming up. But they represent a more thought and more researched view of the government opinion, and that is also addressing safety and health security of most of you. So we will let you know in the next session and another session following that about the health and safety aspects of the infrastructure at the institution, in campus, outside campus, and anything that is connected with health and safety infrastructure in Ahmedabad and around the place where the institute is. So that session is going to be at 3 o'clock, as has been already informed to you. Astha was telling us about that. Rest, I'm sure you will love your journey. So till we physically meet and we have a blend of whatever way we want to get on with the sessions, regular sessions, the next 15-20 days are going to be engagements on knowledge, on personal exploration journeys, and it will be a lot about solving a lot of doubts and questions that you have in mind, because we will have a posse of CEOs and very accomplished people coming and speaking about specific sectors of infrastructure where Adani business has an interest, and all of you would have a future interest specifically for your future careers. All right, so see you all at 3 p.m. and our engagement and dialogue will continue. Thank you very much.
I would reiterate, please join by 2:45. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Please do that for all the sessions going ahead. It's a request because we are relying on technology. We should give ourselves time to settle down and see that everything works well.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and all the best for your journey ahead. Look forward to
and
having
there were a lot of people who had joined us from outside the current batch also. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. I am sure You might have also asked a lot of questions on the chat window. We did not know how to figure out who was a student behind the question, so we picked up every question and either addressed that or mentioned that. So I hope that you keep on being very inquisitive as you have shown today. That's the way forward. Good luck to all of you.